bloody amazing, that song. It's absolutely beautiful way to finish the record. Where did it come in the writing process? I mean, it sounds so perfectly as an ending record.
Me and Richard wrote together. I sat down and wrote the piano bit for the verses, and then he came up with the choruses on the guitar. So it was kind of a nice, slightly schizophrenic kind of piece. And then we kind of stuck the end on as well. That was your idea, I think, where there's kind of a third place for it to go. It was really weird. When Brett wrote something to it, we didn't really get what he was trying to do. It kind of didn't quite fit. We'd had the piece of music for a long time, and when we finally got Brett's melody back, kind of like, oh, okay, that's right, okay. Didn't know what we had for a while, and then eventually we kind of got used to it and realised it was like this big piece that you could throw a load of stuff at in that chorus, so you can make it as bombastic as you want and it would still actually not topple over under its own weight. So it was good. It kind of had to be the final song on the record, really.
Is that one of the things about Brett's voice for you as producers when you're arranging and what have you, that you can, it's such a distinctive and strong voice, you can throw tons at it and it doesn't get squashed?
It depends on the song. I think sometimes if Brett approaches it in a fragile way, then the reverse is true. You always have to start taking things out. And it really is, it's such an integral part of the sound of the group that, you know, and this is a good example of a song perhaps where we all got, the three of us were working on it and got stuck in it, working in a particular way, and then Brett contributes to it, and it actually does change the song, and then we have to rethink where we're at. And I think that's one of the great things about Suede, is the fact that the music is so fluid right up until the record's finished. And this album probably more so than Bloodsports, because it was conceived in that way. Yeah, everything has to fit around Brett, obviously, but in a strange way, he sort of pulls everything together. You know, so it's sort of, suddenly you get this vocal melody and it's like, thank God for that, yes. Because you know, you've only half the work is done. You've got these chords and these great sounds and great riffs, but it's not a song yet, which puts an awful lot of responsibility on Brett.
What were you going for in this one? Because it's quite an optimistic sort of ending in some ways, isn't it? This sort of awareness of self sort of happens.
What was I going for? I suppose it's sort of some of the Bloodsports theme was sort of bleeding into this, sort of like thematically, you know, about the kind of like the chase of the endless game of love, you know. But there's obviously references to mortality in it as well. I was listening to, is it Song for the Siren? Is it
Tim Buckley?
Yeah, Tim Buckley. I was listening to that melody when I was thinking, I was sort of trying to make the melody work in a similar way on this. The way it kind of sounds almost kind of sort of Middle Eastern, the kind of way the melody worked, and it didn't quite work. But that was sort of like what I was aiming at. That was the sort of like that was the kind of the goal for it. But something that's quite good, because you aim for something and you don't get it, but you get something else. You get something in between, which has got its own value, kind of thing. So that's sometimes what I do when I'm writing a melody. I sort of like, I'll try and write a melody like that. But luckily, I'm not kind of like proficient enough a musician to be able to rip people off very well. Do you know what I mean? So I can like end up with my own slightly kind of like scruffy version of it, which has got its own kind of value anyway.
But that's often why bands' debut albums are most interesting. I always think that they aim for something. They want to sound like the Beatles, but they can't.
Wrong.
and they fall somewhere interesting, and then they get much better at their instruments, and then they do a Beatles pastiche record and you're not interested. You know, before when we were talking about being pretentious, it's important to aim really high. You know what I mean? It's important to be ambitious about these things and to try and do something that you probably can't do. You know, it's especially as you get older as a band, you're kind of aware of the fact this doesn't go on forever. You know what I mean? There's no point making a record that treads water. It has to sink or swim, you know.
You're also trying to do something different, aren't you? When you get to your age as a band, you can't be making hit singles ad infinitum, because it's not something that suits the band. you've got to be, in a strange way, you've got to change what you do as a band, and that's what I like about this record, is that it's very, not just brave, it also acknowledges the fact that they have to move on as musicians and as writers and try different things.